do have a timeout. Decide not to use it. Curry, way downtown. Bang! Bang! Oh, what a shot from Curry!
What's up, everyone? My name is Ethan. This is Courtside TV. If you're new, don't forget to subscribe, and let's get into it. So, today I wanted to talk about a team that is not nearly as dominant as we have expected them to be, and that is the Milwaukee Bucks. They're currently on a 5-game losing streak, which drops their record to 16-13, and that is still good for, I believe, 3rd in the Eastern Conference. They're still right there, right behind Brooklyn and Philly. So, I mean, you know, it's not going to kill them in terms of playoff positioning here, but it is fair to wonder just how good are the Bucks as we stack them up to last year's team, because you know, last year and the year before, the Bucks were completely killing everybody in the regular season. Of course, Giannis won those both MVPs. They were dominant, and they were just, you know, running everybody out of the gym basically. And then, you know, as we know, they ran into walls in the playoffs and weren't able to get over the hump there in years against the Raptors and then against the Heat last season, where those teams were kind of able to exploit some of their weaknesses and, you know, take them out of the game. And this season we're like, okay, well, maybe they've addressed some of those things, right? Obviously, they made the Jrue Holiday trade. They've completely reshuffled the supporting cast around Giannis. It's really just Giannis and Middleton and Brook Lopez back, and pretty much all the other, you know, pieces around them have kind of been shuffled around. So this is really a different team from last year. And it's interesting seeing how they've performed so far, because a lot of people kind of just expected them to continue, you know, to continue their regular season dominance and just do what we've seen them do for the last 2 years, and then, you know, who knows when by the time the playoffs come around. But that has not been the case so far. So kind of wanted to go over some reasons why I think that might be and where the Bucks can go from here. And the first thing you point to is obviously Jrue Holiday being out. That's probably one of the major reasons for this losing streak here. He has been out in, you know, contact tracing, health and safety protocols. It's currently unclear whether or not he himself has tested positive or if he's just been in close contact of somebody, but he has been out for 6 games now, and they're on a 5-game losing streak. So that's, you know, reason numero uno right there why this could possibly be. This is a guy who is probably their 3rd best player, and he has, you know, he's not there. You know, he brings the defense, he brings the toughness, and they traded a lot to get him in the offseason. You know, him not being there means they also don't have the services of Eric Bledsoe, who they gave up to get him, and all of the other pieces that were included in that trade, right? So it's been a little tough sledding for them without him, right? The defense hasn't been the same. They've been giving up a lot of points. Offensively, they've kind of looked discombobulated at times, with, you know, Giannis kind of running into a wall at points inside, and Chris Middleton not being, you know, crazy good over their last couple. And so, you know, they've just, you can really point to that Jrue Holiday thing and say, okay, like, that's probably one of the major reasons, but still, this is a team that was a buzzsaw last year, and they were winning, even, you know, when guys like Eric Bledsoe were out of the lineup, and they were just able to continue to win. So it is sort of a red flag, especially against the, you know, the certain teams that they've been losing to over the last week. So this is the losing streak they've been on, and the first 2 losses are excusable, I guess. When you look at it, you have Phoenix, who has been on a tear as of late. We know they just dropped that game to Brooklyn, but they've been playing really well. They had been on a win streak before they lost that game the other day, and that's just a 1-point loss. Giannis had 47 in that game, so it was close, but they ended up dropping that one on the road. And then Utah, who we know has been on an absolute tear as well, won like 19 of their last 20, or it might be 20 out of 21 now. The Jazz have been a complete buzzsaw. So that one on the road is also, you know, while not ideal, it is kind of excusable. And then the worst loss here is OKC. This is a team that is clearly tanking, and they did not have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander that night. So he did not play. That's their best player, and they just, for some reason, lost to OKC on the road. That's the one that you're really like, okay, well, what the heck is going on here? Because that's definitely a team you should beat. And then losing to the Raptors twice. We know the Raptors are good, and we know that they've matched up well against the Bucks in the past, but this season they've been sort of struggling, right? They had been, you know, very up and down, recently have sort of climbed themselves out of the hole that they were in to start the year and put themselves in a playoff position, but still, this is not an elite level team. The Raptors have not been awesome this, you know, point blank this year. So those are definitely some concerning losses. I was expecting the Bucks to win at least one out of 2 of those Toronto games, and definitely that OKC game was one that you would expect Milwaukee to pick up. So these are some concerning losses recently, and you can point to the Jrue Holiday thing, but, you know, this is a team that was expected to potentially be the finals favorite in the Eastern Conference, even prior to the James Harden thing, and even now since that's happened. a lot of people still consider the Bucks to be one of the better teams in the conference, despite the playoff things we've seen them run into. They did make some changes, and so you know, we know they have Giannis, the MVP, and all sorts of good players on this roster. So as we get close to the All-Star break, the good news for Milwaukee here is they have a couple of easier games coming up. They're going to be at home, you know, for the rest of this stretch, except for that last game at Memphis. So they have a nice long homestand here. They're going to be able to, you know, figure things out. Hopefully they get Jrue Holiday back relatively soon. And they've got games here against Oklahoma City, who we know they just lost to, but this time it hopefully should be different, assuming that they've made some adjustments and they fixed things out and they're getting desperate for a win, I'm sure. And if they lose that one, that's another red flag right there. It is on a back-to-back, so I don't know, that could be kind of dicey, but we'll have to see how that game goes tomorrow. Sacramento is another team who, you know, that's definitely a winnable game for them. Minnesota as well might be the worst team in the league right now, especially with D'Angelo Russell now going to be out for a little while, so you know, Minnesota's struggling. New Orleans is, you know, they're a good team, but they're not great, so that's another winnable game at home. Clippers will be tough. You know, they might be healthy by then. We'll see about Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. And then Denver is also another tough game. So they have two couple of tough ones, and then Memphis, you know, that's the last day before the All-Star break. Who knows? That one's on the road. Memphis is a good team, but again, this should be a winnable game for Milwaukee. So they have, you know, quite a few easier games coming up on their schedule as a chance to get everything right and get everything flowing. So we'll just have to see how they perform leading up to the All-Star break. But if they go into the All-Star break and they're continuing to play like this, then we've really got to have a conversation about the Bucks. And then other than the Jrue Holiday thing, I think, at least in my opinion, part of the reason why they're not winning as many games is it just kind of feels like they're being maybe a little like lackadaisical with stuff here. It feels like a lot of these guys have sort of taken their foot off the gas because Giannis doesn't feel like he's playing at quite the same level as he had the past couple of years. His statistics are still, you know, what you would expect them to be, on par with his MVP seasons, but it does feel like he's sort of taken a little bit of a step back and kind of saving this team for the playoffs, because they've been really putting their foot on the gas hard for the last two regular seasons, and then things kind of fall apart for them once they get into the postseason. This year it does feel like they're kind of taking things a little slower, which you can view as a good thing, in terms of, you know, making sure that they're all going to be a-okay when it comes time for the playoffs, not giving too much away, all that sort of thing. Seems like Budenholzer's doing the same thing as well, maybe Chris Middleton, a little bit of that. And then the other thing I think is their depth is probably not quite the same as it has been over the past couple of years. They had to give up a lot to get Jrue Holiday. You know, it was matching salary, but there was quite a few, you know, there was a couple rotation players in that deal that had to be included just to make up the money. And so, you know, losing all of those guys while bringing in Jrue Holiday is good. It feels like it was sort of a shot to their depth. And they had to bring in a lot of guys out the bargain bin. Like they got Bobby Portis and Bryn Forbes and brought in DJ Augustine on the mid-level. So, and like those are fine players, but I just don't feel like it's quite the same level of depth as they had last year and the previous. So that could be part of it. But again, you know, 5-game losing streak is never good, but I do think the Bucks will probably figure it out come playoff time. I do have belief in Giannis as a player, and I think this roster is constructed fairly well, but you just have to wonder, you know, what are the reasons for this losing streak here? And then you also have to question whether or not they're going to make a move at coach, because we know we've seen Budenholzer struggle in the playoffs for the last two seasons, you know, failing to make adjustments, failing to adjust his rotations and in a timely manner and really get this team to what their ceiling probably is. He's been a good regular season coach for them, not so much in the playoffs. So if this team is not exceeding expectations or not even meeting expectations to where we thought they would be, is it crazy to consider they might fire Budenholzer mid-season and bring in somebody else? Who knows? They probably wouldn't do that unless they, you know, had a lot of confidence in whoever the replacement is. But that's, I guess, something to consider. Maybe that doesn't happen until the offseason. But, you know, they might be, you know, ticking down on some time here. I know Giannis just signed a Supermax, but the team isn't getting any cheaper, and it's going to get a lot harder to build a really competitive roster, especially as Jrue Holiday gets older and Chris Middleton is only getting more expensive, and Giannis's, you know, Supermax deal is kicking in after this season. So the window is sort of tightening a little bit. I still do think they're going to really contend as long as Giannis is on the team, but it's not getting any easier to build a title caliber team around him with all of the pieces, you know, getting older and getting more expensive. So maybe the clock is ticking on Budenholzer if he can't figure this out pretty quick. But yeah, I think that's about all I have on Giannis and the Milwaukee Bucks. Like I said at the top of the video, if you're new, don't forget to subscribe, leave a like, ring the bell if you want to, leave a comment letting me know what you think about the Bucks, their slow, tough stretch here. Yeah, with all that out of the way, I will see you guys in the next one.